Understanding the Science of Hypertrophy. Muscular hypertrophy is the development of muscular mass, density, and capacity, simply meaning muscle growth. The SAID principle is one of the most important concepts in sports science. It stands for Specific Adaptation to Imposed Demand, which simply means when the body is placed under some sort of stress, it starts to make adaptations. This will allow the body to get better at withstanding the specific form of stress in the future. The adaptation that occurs is specific to the demand. In order to elicit exercise-induced hypertrophy, the stress has to be specific. You can see by this image how inactivity can cause atrophy, but over time, with regular exercise, the atrophied leg can return to normal. When someone performs resistance training regularly, they may notice some muscular growth. The growth is due to an increase in water, nutrient storage, number of myofibrils, and connective tissue. Hypertrophy is often broken down into two types. Myofibril hypertrophy, sometimes called functional hypertrophy, increases muscle cell size by increasing the actual size of myofibrils. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy increases muscle size by increasing the volume of sarcoplasmic fluid in the muscle cell. Many people in the fitness industry use bodybuilders as an example of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and state that their muscles look more puffy, while weightlifters demonstrate more myofibril hypertrophy and their muscles have a denser look. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is accomplished by the expansion of the sarcoplasm inside the muscle cell. The sarcoplasm expands to allow for greater storage capacity. The main factor contributing to an increase in size with sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is glycogen storage and hydration. For example, 1 gram of stored glycogen is accompanied by 4 grams of water. A standard hypertrophy diet will contain 1 to 3 grams per pound of body weight of carbohydrates, accompanied by another 5 grams per 2 working sets on workout days. A 200-pound male could be consuming 400 grams daily with an additional 150 grams of carbohydrates on workout days, totaling 550 grams of carbs. That same 550 grams of carbs would be accompanied by 2,200 grams of water. This person could have a total weight fluctuation of 2,750 grams, roughly 6 pounds. It's important to note that even though a lot of the added lean body mass could be from stored water, it still contributes to an increased performance and can therefore increase overall hypertrophy long term. Myofibril hypertrophy. Myofibrillar hypertrophy is accomplished via the growth of the myofibrils inside each muscle fiber. The myofibrils are the actual motors of the muscle fiber, made up of contractile proteins that make the muscle fiber contract. Myofibril hypertrophy is often referred to as functional hypertrophy. It is thought of as a compromise between size and strength. So here is where the water starts to get a little muddy. There are no examples of myofibrillar hypertrophy occurring without sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, and there are no examples of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy occurring without myofibrillar hypertrophy. Myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy have always been thought of and taught as mutually exclusive. However, we know that myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy are not mutually exclusive, but can possibly occur consecutively, but at varying rates. A muscle cell is on average made up of roughly 80% myofibrillar proteins and 20% sarcoplasm. When myofibrillar hypertrophy occurs, the ratio stays the same and the entire muscle fiber increases in size. This brings us to the million-dollar question. Can sarcoplasmic hypertrophy occur at a faster rate than myofibrillar proteins can grow? If this does occur, it would mean that the standard framework of a muscle cell could be adjusted from 80% myofibrillar and 20% sarcoplasmic to something different. Perhaps 75-25, 70-30, maybe even a 60-40 split. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, sometimes called non-functional hypertrophy, refers to gains in muscle size that aren't associated with an improved force production. Myofibrillar hypertrophy, sometimes called functional hypertrophy, refers to gains in muscular size that improve maximum force production. Many people used to refer to non-functional hypertrophy as impractical and labeled it as all show, no go. Now, we've just learned that neither is mutually exclusive. So where does the extra strength come from? Any increase in strength is from neuromuscular training zones, simply by being in a lower rep range. Now, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy yields less force production, but does increase work capacity. So both should be labeled as functional relative to how they are applied. Hyperplasia. Hyperplasia simply means an increase in the number of muscle fibers, whereas hypertrophy means the increase in size of the muscle fiber. The question being asked is whether muscle growth occurs primarily through hypertrophy, or can the number of muscle fibers increase via hyperplasia? The idea behind hyperplasia would mean if we could somehow increase the number of muscle fibers and then grow them too, more size could be attained. Animal research has conclusively shown that hyperplasia can occur in mammals. The most common successful method is called the quail wing stretch. This is done by putting a quail wing under a constant stretch for 24 hours a day for 28 days, with a progressively heavier weight. The intense stretching and tearing of muscle fibers causes hyperplasia. However, this isn't really applicable with humans. Nobody is going to spend 24 hours a day for 28 days in the gym stretching a muscle under load. So, does hyperplasia occur in humans? It's hard to say because the methods used to create it are not realistic for people. We can say with some certainty it probably can happen, but doesn't very much. So can it contribute to overall hypertrophy? We'll let you decide.